everyone and welcome back to Becoming a Polyglot. Today is the long promised video about the CPE taking a C2 level exam, language exam, and in this case the Cambridge English exam. I will be talking about different things throughout the video, so if you're interested in just a specific subject or a specific topic that I will discuss, then feel free to skip ahead, as I will also put the timestamps in the description down below. If you don't know me yet, hi and welcome to this channel. My name is Vera and here I show how I learned several languages by myself, whilst I'm also an English teacher here in Holland. I'm a native Dutch speaker, trying to learn several languages such as Chinese, Korean, French, Spanish, and I actually know German as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's just get started with the video, and if you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them down below. If you see me look at my iPad sometimes, it's over here. It contains my notes, so I won't forget anything throughout this video. Let's just get started with the very first question, and that is, what is actually the CPE? CPE stands for Cambridge Proficiency Exam, and this specific exam aims at achieving a C2 level of English. That means that you're near native, almost fluent in the English language. It is the highest qualification of Cambridge that you can possibly get. You will be tested upon 5 skills: use of English, reading, writing, listening and speaking. Whenever you pass this exam, well, you can get 230 points per skill, and the average amount should be above 200 points. When you've done that, you've passed. If you pass with 200 points, that means you've got the C2 level of English with a grade C. You also have grade B and A being the highest within the C2 level. If you want to partake in a Masters in English, then you've got to have a grade A within that C2 level. That means that you can't really make any mistakes. Luckily for my bachelor, grade C is more than enough. C2 is C2. So that was good for me because this test was really difficult. Why did I have to take it? Well, as I am a bachelor student of English and also an English teacher, I of course have to master the language that I'm teaching. So therefore I needed to get a C2 diploma and was sent to the CPE exam. When did I take it? Well, I took it twice because the first time I sadly failed. I took it once in December 2021. It was my first attempt at the CPE. Which was quite an experience, I have to say, because it took about 1.5 days, but I will get into that later on. I sadly didn't pass the entire exam. I got 191 points on average, which means that I scored a C1 level of English. Receiving a C1 certificate was already something I'm like, wow, that's just great, but not good enough for my bachelor. Sadly. So I had to take it again in July, past July 2022 or June. It was June. I took the test again, or the exam, and this time I did pass with 204 points. So I barely passed. But anyways, I passed. And I'm very happy about that. I actually cried. I found out about it when I was on holiday with my parents to Luxembourg and France. We were driving in the car. I'm like, oh my gosh, they just uploaded the score, and I started crying because I finally was able to pass the exam. It was so difficult. Okay, back to the video, because how did I study for this exam? What does it entail? What do you have to do? I will tell you. Like I said, the test consists of 5 skills which you will be tested upon. I would highly recommend looking up exam papers online and see what kind of questions they are asking you. When you're taking a C2 level exam, your language level is probably sufficient enough, but I would highly recommend getting familiarized with the types of questions they are asking. I didn't do that the first time, so it took me a lot of time to actually read the questions thoroughly to understand what it is that they wanted me to do. Use of English is actually a skill all about fill in the gap exercises. You'll see a text with gaps in them, and then you have to put in the right word. Sometimes you have to put in the right word, or the word is already given to you, but you have to change it to fit its context, stuff like that. Within those same 2 hours, you also have reading. And I found out, because I've done it twice, that the reading part is often about something scientific. I've got a lot of text about NASA and astronauts, mechanical engineering. It was fairly interesting. Of course, I would highly recommend looking up C2 types of text and getting familiarized with different jargon so you understand more quickly what it is that they're talking about. Then on to writing, another 2 hours, and one tip from me to you is turn the page over to see what else you need to do. The first attempt at the CPE, I was really keen on writing as much as I can, as thoroughly as I can, throwing in a lot of formal words, and I did super well. I almost used up my entire 2 hours for this particular part, and then I turned the page over and I saw that I had to write another essay. Because yeah, the writing part consists of either an article, a review, a letter, formal or informal, or an essay, stuff like that. However, you need to write 2 of those, not 1. So the second time I did not make that mistake again. I think I was just too nervous the first time I did the CPE. So definitely familiarize yourselves with the different layouts of a formal letter, of an informal letter, a review, an article. What do you need to implement in those kinds of text? Because you will be tested upon, of course. You have to write it, so you cannot type it. There are computer-based CPE exams. I took the written one, which I also recommend doing actually, as I enjoyed just marking everything on my exam paper. You were allowed to do so, and I think that's just a bit easier to do than on a computer, but by all means a computer is fine as well. In terms of the writing part, I would recommend that you at home also write it with pen and paper, your articles, your essays as a preparation, instead of typing it on a computer. I found out that I was struggling with a lot of spelling because my computer often tells me what the spelling should be. So that was definitely something I did not take in regards. Then on to listening. The listening part I thought was really difficult. And that's just my opinion. Of course, some people think it's the easiest. I thought it was the most difficult. And that's not because of the types of audio that they will give you. No, it's more because of the questions. Also, like I said, I didn't prepare myself by looking into the types of questions they were going to ask you. There were of course a lot of multiple choice questions for both reading and also listening, so that was fairly easy to do. Or easy, I mean, it was okay. It was not easy. But what I struggled with the most were the mix and match questions. Why? It's because you have to read very, very fast. Because you have 2 different rows of mix and match fragments, you have to put those together, obviously. But you have about 10 seconds to read it before they start the audio. And they talk really fast. And of course they talk in synonyms. So the words that you're hearing do not match to the words you're seeing on your paper. Which is of course something you have to acquire with a C2 level of English, and I understand. But I was thrown off guard by like, oh, I don't know what they're saying. So the second time what I did is, those 10 seconds I had before they started the audio, I was already writing down different synonyms in between the lines and see what kinds of main topics I could recognize in each of those fragments. And that actually made it more easy for me. So that's a tip I would like to give to you. But that's just because I struggled with that part. Then the final part is speaking. And I would say speaking was rather easy. It doesn't take up 2 hours like the other skills. No, it's just 15 minutes. Less even. I had to go to a different building, therefore it took 1.5 days. This was that half a day. And I had to fill out a form, show my identification, and wait until I was paired up with someone to do my CPE speaking exam. So what they do is pair you up with someone else who's doing the CPE, you don't know who, and then you will be shown to a room where there are 2 examinators watching you. It's a bit nerve-wracking walking into a room where 2 people are staring at you like, okay, let's go. This is your moment to shine. No, it's doable, I would say. Both times of the CPE, I passed the speaking part. So it's doable. They start off very nicely. They know you're nervous, so that's always a good thing. Like, introduce yourself, what is your name, what is your age, where are you from, what are your hobbies, etc. And then your partner will obviously do the same. Then they will hand you different statements to see how fast and fluently you can respond to those kinds of things. You're totally allowed to throw in your own opinions. If you agree or not agree, that does not matter. It's mostly about the fluency. You will also have a discussion about this. So the examiner will tell you, okay, that was about 2 minutes that you've spoken. Great. Now it's time for a discussion. Ask your partner what he or she thinks about this statement. And you have to discuss. The downfall of this discussion is that sometimes you're out of words and you don't know what to say. So it's always nice if you or your partner can help each other through it by asking just random questions that has something remotely to do with the statement. Like I said, it's all about fluency. After the statements, you get a few pictures. And I noticed that these pictures are actually often about the same subject. So, in order to prepare for the speaking exam, look up jargon about the environment. Since I've done the CPE 2 times, I found out that I often got pictures about windmills, about pollution in cities, about trains, about public transport, and then the counterpart is a deserted island, nature, trees, animals. And then the examiner goes, okay, you have 3 minutes to explain to us what it is that you see and how that connects to each other. Go. Okay. And you just start rambling about what you see. Okay, so that's it for the 5 different skills about the CPE. On to how did I study for a C2 level exam? My bachelor studies offered us 2 attempts at the CPE per school year, so therefore I started last year and I just went in there blindly just to see what it would be like, what the environment would be like, what the questions would be like. Sadly I didn't pass, but I had another go, so that made me confident. If you don't have that privilege, if you have to pay for it yourself, I would highly recommend listening to BBC podcasts. I didn't really know how to study for a C2 level exam, especially because I didn't know where to start. How can you start improving your English from C1 to that C2 near native level? What is in between? I've been listening to a lot of BBC podcasts, not necessarily because it's the BBC so it's British English, it's mostly because of the different topics they were talking about. They would probably have a similar kind of podcast of different news outlets in America or in your country, I don't know. I used the BBC. Because I knew from my first attempt that there was a lot of jargon about science and also the environment, I've been listening to a lot of news podcast outlets about science and the environment, just to get familiarized with the jargon that I would then implement in my speaking part, and it would also help me recognize and understand the text better during the reading skill. Knowing how we could and should change the world is often being implemented during the speaking part as well, so therefore I thought it would be useful to listen to those kinds of shows, podcasts, news, interviews, stuff like that. And the BBC was actually really good. Some of the podcasts I've been listening to is BBC You're Dead to Me. This is mostly about history, but also politics. And since I don't know many jargon about politics, I thought it would be very useful. Plus, it's a really funny show, so it's just very enjoyable to listen to. My favorite one was the BBC Global News podcast, because they upload new podcasts almost every day about a different subject. The BBC documentary podcast is also great for learning about the environment, especially how the world is being polluted by us humans, by our vehicles, stuff like that. Definitely useful jargon. And also the C2 Proficiency Quest. Actually, any C2 related podcast can be found on Spotify, but this one I used more thoroughly, as they talk about different topics that are often related to the exam. You can hear what kinds of vocab they are using in a different jargon. They will mention the C2 levels in their show notes below. So that's definitely very useful to create your own C2 word list and see what you still have to familiarize yourself with. For the writing part, I've been mostly looking at advanced linking words, as I know that that is something that they are looking for. These are the words you can once again add to your C2 vocab list to remember them for the CPE. And lastly, know how to write a formal letter. Know the layout. I think that's really good to know. Same of an article, same of a review. And then the moment we've been waiting for. I got it. It's the C2 level of English. You get this great piece of paper. It's actually really thick as well. By Cambridge Assessment English, and it has my name on it. And as you can see, this was my score. I had 191 points in reading, so that means I actually scored a C1 level. I had 209 points for use of English, 200 points for writing, just past the C2 mark, 204 points for listening, and 215 points for speaking. That means I got an average of 204 points. And as you can see, I got 4 out of the 5 skills at a C2 level and 1 skill just below. And that's okay. Like I said, they will take an average of the 5 scores. So that was it for this video. I hope I can help you out preparing for this very difficult exam. But I know you can do it! Definitely. No, it's doable. But don't underestimate it. I think that's the point of this video. Do let me know if you have any other questions, leave them down below. I'd love to hear your stories and whether you are learning English as well. I would like to thank you for watching this video once again, and I hope to see you very soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and even share it with your friends. That would mean a lot to me. And I will see you next time. Alright, bye bye!